Hi guys, so we will go over the new buyer tenant representation agreement long form. Now this form, let me share my screen and show it to you. This form was updated January 5th of 2026. Okay. So this outlines who the client is, the buyer, the broker, which is my company slash me. Okay. Let's put that name in there and spell it correctly. Okay. And this has a few appointments. So the client gives my boss the permission to act as our agent for acquiring a property in the market area. Definitions: acquire means to purchase or lease, closing means to purchase and finalize the sale, which includes signing of all the documents and then all of the funds hitting the title company, which includes the buyer's funds at closing and also a loan if it is applicable. Okay. All monies are paid. All the market area is El Paso County. Property means the real estate. Related party could be a spouse if it's an estate, if the people involved in the estate, or a trust, or attorneys that are involved as part of a trust. Okay. Anybody that's involved or has some kind of ownership or right to in the sale of the property. Okay. Term. This is when our listing agreement, our buyer representation agreement starts, and this is when it ends. My obligation is to give you the best effort in acquiring a property and negotiating in the property market area and to comply with any other provisions here. Your obligations is to work exclusively with me. Now, in Texas, we are no longer allowed to show any properties without any type of agreement, even if it's an unrepresented agreement. I don't do that. I only work with clients that are going to go into the agreement to work with me because, as you know, you go to show up to work with a promise of a paycheck. I have to show up to work and represent my clients with the promise of getting paid. And so if you're working with multiple agents, only one of those agents can get paid. So that's why I do the exclusive representation agreement. Okay. If we're, it's also your obligation to inform me if you have a contract with any other broker and comply with any provisions of this agreement. Compensation. So the amount of compensation and the way compensation is paid is not fixed. Okay, that's what this says. We no longer put it in the MLS. So as a buyer agent, I first have to go to the listing agent, the seller's agent, to see if they're willing to pay me. And if they're not willing to pay me, then I have to go back to you to see if you will pay me or you've agreed that if they won't, you will. Going into any property, I will let you know if there's an issue where the seller's agent is not willing to pay me or if the compensation they're offering is less than the 3% that I'm charging. Okay. Now, this is where I charge the 3% commission. I do not charge a retainer. Okay. Source of compensation, I will seek it first from the seller, then from you. It is earned when you go into a contract to buy or lease. And if you breach the contract, so we get to closing and then you say, "Oh, by the way, I don't want you getting paid. I don't think you deserve to get paid," or for whatever crazy reason, right? We've dealt with all sorts of things in this brokerage. I've never had a client get to closing and tell me they won't pay me. But if that were to happen, then at that point you would owe me a commission. It is payable either during the term of the agreement or after it ends, whichever happens earlier, the closing of the transaction. You breach the contract by buying or leasing the property, uh, and you breach the agreement if you also, and just if you flat out decide not to, buy the property at the very, very end. That has happened to me where a buyer gets cold feet at the very end. Um, it was some very odd situations, just a very small number, but also, I would be able to commission if you decide to buy more than one property during the time we have this agreement. Okay. If you acquire a property that's listed with my company, then I go directly to that listing agent for that fee. Okay. And then listing agreement by the owner will be credited towards a broker's fees. Okay. Additional compensation. In addition to this fee, I will get paid 3% commission on the say on new construction. If same thing, 3%. Let me correct my typo here. Sales price. And I can also refer service providers and get paid a referral fee. I don't do that though. I don't want to be responsible for whatever they do or don't do, right? Other compensation, if there's any additional bonuses that I know of a friend I'm going to get, then I would put it in here. If I don't know, then I wouldn't put anything here. So for example, if we go to new construction and they're offering a $3,000 or $5,000 bonus, then I would have to amend this agreement. Okay. In addition to this agreement, this goes into that. Now you have to know about any kind of bonuses I might get. And it's common, especially when there's a lot of competition and we want to make sure that we get you with the best builder with the best terms, et cetera, et cetera. Protection period. If this buyer representation agreement ends, I've got to, within 10 days, I've got to give you a list of all the properties you looked at. If you purchase a property within 60 days, any of those properties, then you would owe me a commission. However, if you enter into another representation agreement with another agent, I get paid nothing. Okay. All monies are paid in El Paso County. Each person that signs this agreement knows that they have the legal capacity to sign it. You're not aware of any other agreements that you've signed into. And you are aware that all the information that you're giving me is true and correct. If there's any relocation company involved, we would enter it here. As an agent, I cannot sign any documents for you. And intermediary status. That means that if you wind up purchasing a property that's listed with my company, then my boss will act as an intermediary. Okay. There, there could be agents assigned to either the seller or the buyer. Okay. Or if there is no agreement, then they have to let you know. But they also have to let you know like who stands where, so that you're never in the position of disclosing information that could harm your position. Okay. Um, if you decide not to do intermediary, then you would check that box right there. But why would you limit it to anything else except for Keller Williams listings? All right. The my broker cannot disclose to the seller that or cannot disclose to the buyer that the seller will take less, may not disclose to the seller that the buyer is willing to pay more, may not disclose any confidential information unless required by law or in writing, shall treat all parties honestly, and will comply with the Texas Real Estate Act. If I have another buyer competing for the similar properties as yours, I'll let you know. Okay, just know that that's always a possibility. And during this agreement, we acknowledge that not may not knowingly disclose any confidential information of yours. Okay, even after the agreement ends, unless otherwise agreed to or required by law. The seller or seller's agent is not obligated to keep the existence of another offer or terms confidential. So we may or may not know if we're competing, and the listing agent is not allowed to disclose what those offers are unless the seller gives them permission. If we have a dispute, we agree to go to mediation first and split the fees down the middle. If we do wind up going to court, then if either party fails to comply with this agreement or make false representation in this agreement, the non-complying party will be in default. If the client's in default, we may terminate the agreement, and the buyer may be liable for compensation, my commission, or exercise any other remedies allowed by law. If my office and I are in default, then you may exercise any rights or remedies available to you by law. If a client or broker, if we do wind up in court, the losing party may have to pay the winner's attorney's fees, depending on how the judge rules. God forbid, I've never gone to court. And then neither broker, associates, or any other person is responsible or liable for personal injuries, loss or damage to personal property, direct cause, unless directly caused by this. Okay, client will hold us or any associates near harmless for any injuries or losses. Client will indemnify broker and associates against any claims arising from injury or damage caused by client or others to or their property. Okay. Addendum. Information about broker services. We're going to add it here. Information about information concerning property insurance, general information, and notice to consumers for your protection. Get a home inspection and wire fraud notice. Those are all additional items that are going to be included in your package. This says that our brokerage cannot discriminate based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, familiar status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Okay. Or local ordinances may provide for additional protected classes. Okay. which may include status as a student, marital status, or age. Broker is not an inspector. We cannot give you that kind of advice. You should seek experts to render such services. If you buy a home, if you want, if the client purchases a property, you can have an abstract of title, which is usually examined by an attorney, or get a title policy. 99.9% of the time you get a title policy, but you always have the right to do an abstract on your at your expense. You can also buy a home warranty. Now, just know that there's different companies, different coverages, different um, premiums, and you have the right to shop around, but you do have to use somebody that is licensed to operate in Texas. We will send you two different pamphlets to initial, just acknowledging that you've gotten copies of both. When viewing a property, just know if you record, you have to consult with an attorney because we don't know if you have the right to record somebody else's property, even if they have it up for sale. I will always ask the seller's agent if I can record. Now, again, if you get something saying that wiring instructions have changed, do not respond. Pick up the phone and call me immediately. There's a lot of wire fraud. And there's a Texas property code that restricts certain individuals from certain companies from purchasing property. If you have any doubt with regard to that, you need to consult with an attorney. If you have any questions for me regarding this form, pick up the phone, give me a call, or shoot me a text. Thanks. Bye.